Hi, God bless you. Welcome back to Late Talk with Lucy. Um, Again, if you are new, just know that Lucy speaks. I am a Christian therapist, and every other week I come on here and share some videos for your growth, healing videos. Just just think of it as some online therapy that you don't have to pay for. So it's a way for you to continue growing and getting to know yourself. Um, and if you're returning, thank you again for supporting me and for being a regular. And as you log in, say hello. Let me know that you are watching. And please, as I share the video, feel free to ask me any question that you may have. I love to get questions. And if you don't want to share them publicly, the questions, you can always DM me with the question. So today, the topic is, why don't I hear you? How our wounds impact our communication. And it is so important because we all communicate on a daily basis. Unless you live on a secluded island and you live by yourself and you are in seclusion, and it's the only reason you would not be communicating. But every day, practically, we need to open our mouths and communicate. And sadly, just because words come out of your mouth or they sound good coming out of your mouth, does not mean that you are good at communication. The truth is that most people believe they are good communicators, but most people are not healthy communicators. The truth is, when you think about communication, who taught you to communicate? Who taught you to communicate your feelings, your needs, your wants, your observations, and your truth? God bless you, Iris. God bless you, Christine. So glad. Thank you for tuning in. I was just getting started anyway, but I'm asking, because sometimes I get people that reach out to me for therapy and they're like, oh, I don't have a major problem, but I just want to learn to communicate. And I even feel silly or dumb for even coming on here reaching out to you to tell you I don't know how to communicate. And I always say, why do you feel silly? Why do you feel dumb? Who taught you to communicate? Most of the time, we learn how to communicate by watching people and our experiences and our relationships with our primary figures and our family. That's how we learn to communicate. And so if they didn't know how to communicate, we're just repeating. And men and women understand this fact. Men and women communicate different, and that is a fact. That's not a feeling. That's not an observation. Men and women communicate differently. So a lot of times women, because women are genuinely, the majority of women love to communicate because they love to talk. So then they, with their partner or their sons or their husbands or their fathers, and they just frustrated because the male species does not communicate with them the way they communicate, or they're not talkers, or they don't open up. Men and women communicate different. Their brains are wired differently. So it's not the men in your life, that nobody has a conspiracy against you. Don't go jumping from relationship looking for that one man who just knows how to communicate like you or knows how to communicate feelings, because it's not going to happen. Men and women communicate differently, and that is a fact. And truth is that if you lack honest insight into yourself, and unless you heal, you speak and hear from your wounds. I'm going to repeat that again. Unless you have honest insight into yourself, meaning you have a deep understanding for how you operate in this world, unless you have good self-awareness, and unless you heal your wounds and your traumas, everything that comes out of your mouth and what you hear will be, I use the word filtered, will be filtered through your wounds. It will be filtered through your wounds. Today I explained to a client, I always give this picture, because sometimes you function better when you have an idea and a picture, right? So back in the days in Puerto Rico, and they do this a lot in a lot of Caribbean islands, they didn't have these fancy filters to make coffee. So they would use a sock. Yes, they would use a sock and pour the grains of coffee into the sock, and the sock would hold on to the grains so that the coffee can come out. Well, that's how it is when we have unhealed wounds, when we have trauma. Everything we hear goes through the sock. The sock is your hearing, your ears, and all your hurts and your pains and your traumas are the grains that stay stuck in the filter, and what comes out is being processed through all that trauma and that pain inside the filter. So your hearing and the way you communicate is impacted by your wounds. It's impacted by your pain, your experiences. It is very impacted. So we all have, every single one of us has a primary wound that left scars, that left unprocessed feelings, and it left messages in your belief system, in your life. Every single one of us has a major wound. The wound may be different. For some people, it's abandonment. For some people, it's rejection. For some people, it's not feeling wanted. Everyone has a major wound, okay? So the first thing is to find out what your major wound is. And so I'm going to give you an example of a primary wound. If your primary wound, hi Keisha, if your primary wound is abandonment, and the lie you believe as a result of being abandoned is, I am not worthy of people staying, so everyone leaves me. Because that's how children process. So if you were abandoned as a child, and a child is up to the age of 18, believe it or not. So if you were abandoned, you don't process the way adult you processes. You process as a child. And the child never thinks that it's the adult's problem. Children internalize pain and think it's something they're doing. So when you're abandoned, there's a lie that you believe when you're abandoned. And that, usually the lie is, I am not worthy of people staying, of people loving me. So then you grow up, you don't heal that primary wound, you just grow up. And if that wound is not healed, anytime someone addresses a problem with you, they want to communicate with you about something in the relationship, and this could be friendship, aunt, cousin, marriage. Whenever they come to talk to you and about a problem, you will filter, which is listen, through that belief system of abandonment, and make whatever they're saying, you're going to make that about yourself. Even if they're talking about their feelings, you're going to make that about yourself. That unworthy feeling is going to rise up, and you will not be able to hear what is being said. You won't be able to, because you will feel the need to defend and protect the person who feels abandoned. That's deep, right? That's deep. So we can't communicate, and we can't, listening is part of communication. We can't communicate, we can't listen if we lack that self-awareness, and if our goal is just to protect ourselves. You're not going to be a good communicator. You're not going to be a good listener. I don't care what your attention is. I don't care. It's still going to manifest that way. So self-awareness. So when I say you need self-awareness, self-awareness is knowing who you are. It's knowing why you respond the way you do. Why are you the way you are? It's knowing your wants and knowing your needs, knowing what you like, what you don't like. That's all part of self-awareness, what your triggers are. So self-aware is not only knowing, but it's also knowing how to verbalize your needs. that's part of self-awareness. So unhealthy communication patterns, they destroy all relationships. I can honestly say that. And those unhealthy communication patterns that destroy all relationships, they involve behaviors like anger, criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and I'll tell you what that is, and contempt. You know, those are the feelings that rise up when you don't have healthy communication, and those feelings will destroy the relationship. And sometimes it doesn't destroy it because some people stay. Some people hang out even though there's no communication, or they don't feel heard, or some people just stay, but it doesn't mean that it's healthy. You know, it doesn't mean that it's healthy. So these patterns can manifest through aggressive communication. You ever try to talk to someone, and I know because I'm in the talking occupation, but even in my personal life, I'll try to talk to someone. Have you ever tried to talk to someone and you're talking nice and calmly, and all of a sudden that person is an aggressive communicator? They start screaming for no reason. They start using all this hand movements. They start becoming disrespectful in their body language, rolling their eyes, sucking their teeth. They're emotionally aggressive. And intentionally then start attacking you and causing you pain, when you're like, wait a second, I was just trying to tell you this, and all of a sudden they're attacking you and saying mean things. I don't think there's anyone who hasn't had an experience in their life like that. You know, every single one of us has had communication with people who don't know how to communicate and who use very unhealthy, aggressive patterns for communication. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about recognizing about 7 patterns in yourself. That's the first step towards healing and having healthier communication. Because, you know, I always use scripture. So the Bible says pride comes before destruction. And the reason why so many relationships are destroyed, and so many marriages are destroyed, and so many families are destroyed, is because pride has people doing this, saying it's that person, it's you, it's not me, it's you, you're the problem. And that's pride, because pride doesn't let you look within. It doesn't let you look in the mirror. So a lot of times when I do couples therapy, that's what I am for the couples. I hold up the mirror and I can tell them what I see, what's really happening. Because when you're in it, you believe at the moment, I'm just saying how I feel. I don't understand why you're getting so angry. Have you ever had that conversation? I don't understand why you're getting so angry at me. I'm just saying how I feel. It's never that simple, just saying how you feel. So I want to talk about the 8 unhealthy patterns. And the key is, I want you to first be honest, do some self work first, and say, which of these do I have? Do I have unhealthy communication patterns? The first one is criticism. And this is a big one. And most people do it. And the sad part is that they do it so much that they don't even recognize how toxic it is, and especially to their relationships. And a lot of times it's learned behavior. So they think it's so normal that they don't even realize that they're even doing it. But criticism is a very unhealthy pattern for communication. If you're constantly criticizing someone, they're not going to want to listen to you. They're not going to hear anything you say if the sentence begins with a criticism. If it starts off with a criticism, no one's going to listen to you. And you can say, well, I'm just criticizing because they made me mad, or I just said that because. You can justify it all you want, but it's never going to get you the goal of being heard. And when we communicate, we all want to be heard. So understand that criticizing doesn't work. Attacking a person's character doesn't work. That's not communication. So you have to learn that healthy is attacking the problem. Unhealthy is attacking the person. So if your goal is to grow in a relationship, if your goal is to solve problems in the relationship, then you should attack the problem. If your goal is to destroy relationships, never be understood, to be in control, or you have your own personal agenda, then you're going to keep attacking the person, because there's something about attacking the person that makes you feel heard in the moment. You think, well, if I say these mean things, then they're gonna hear me. No, they're not. They're gonna shut down, and they're gonna not trust you. They're not gonna trust your words. They're not going to trust you. So I'll give you some examples of criticism, examples of attacking a person's character rather than attacking the problem. The examples are when you do blaming, shaming, and using a lot of you messages. The moment you say to someone, hey, I want to talk to you, the person's like, okay, what's up? And you start the sentence with, well, you did this and this and this and that. You just ruined the whole communication. That person's going to shut down. It's something as simple as shifting that word. Make it about you. This right here. This is the only thing you can't control. This is the only thing is you. So instead of starting with you did this, you did that, start with I feel, I need, I want, I observed. Keep it about you. That will guarantee that someone listens to you. And that should be the goal, that you feel heard. That should be the goal. So there's a difference between sharing and accusing. There's a big difference. When people say, well, I was just sharing how I felt. Were you really? Or were you accusing them and making them the reason why you feel what you feel? There's a big difference. So self-awareness, when you communicate, start with, I need you to listen. Because that's another part. You know, I always say, communicate your intentions first. So especially if you're going to do if this is something that's deep for you, like you're really feeling this and you really want to communicate with someone about it, if it's really important to you, then start it off with, because this is also another part that people get frustrated when they communicate their feelings or their needs or their wants. They said, oh, the person didn't hear me. Or you get angry with the way they respond back to you. I didn't feel heard. You didn't hear anything I was saying. The truth is that you should always start, when you're going to communicate your feelings or your needs or your wants, start by, I love when people do this to me. So I'm going to teach you this tip. So always start with what you need from that person, from that communication, from that interaction. So if you just need them to listen, say that at the beginning. Hey, I'm going to share some feelings with you, but all I need is for you to listen. I don't want no feedback. I just need you to listen to me. I really need to be heard today. If you want empathy and you need a hug, then say that at the beginning. Say, hey, I'm really going to share these feelings and they're really overwhelming me or they're really hurting me. I can really use a hug after. Because then we get mad because we shared I've been there. I have been there. Okay, I've been married a long time. I have been there where I'm sharing my heart and my spouse just stays there looking at me. And I'm like, and then I get mad because I don't get any response. Well, I get a response, but it's not the response I want. So I get mad because I'm not getting the response I want. And then my husband has to remind me, I didn't read your mind. I didn't. And then that's a wake-up call for me. And I'm like, yeah, I should have told you that I needed a hug. I should have told you that that's what I needed today. I just needed to be held. Because my husband would do it in a minute. But I left it for him to figure that out. And now I'm mad. I was hurt and now I'm mad. Now I'm mad at him when I started the conversation just being hurt. You know, so we have to be responsible when we communicate to just say, hey, this is what I need. And I know for me, especially when I have friends or family, because I'm a therapist, most of the time when people talk to me, I always feel like they just want my advice. So I love it when someone talks to me and say, I just need for you to listen. Oh, I love it. Because then I could just do that. I could just listen. Or if they say, listen, I came here because I really need your advice. Then I can listen with the plan to give advice. So it's always good to communicate to the person that you're communicating with what I need. If you need an apology, say that too. Hey, I'm really going to share this with you. I've been holding this resentment, and I really just need you to say sorry. Like, I need you to own this, say it instead of getting mad because they didn't say sorry. It's always good to say it, because nobody is in the business of reading your mind. Nobody. And the truth is that we change our mind so often that even if they get it right now, they may not get it right the second time or the third time, because your needs change. And your needs are your responsibility. They're not other people's responsibility. Your needs, your responsibility. I'm going to say that again. Your needs, your responsibility. Means that it's your job to communicate your needs, not someone else to guess them. The second one that I told you is, we're talking about the unhealthy patterns of communication. The second one is contempt. And what contempt means is when you express disgust or you have this superiority over another person by using sarcasm. Really? You didn't understand that? Anybody could have understood that. That's not going to get you heard. That's not going to get you respected. That's going to kill communication. Sarcasm kills it. Name calling kills it. No one's going to listen to you if you calling them names. I know I won't. You lose me 1,000%. If you roll your eyes at me. These are all examples of contempt behavior. There's something inside of you that thinks you are better than the person you're communicating with. So you talk to them as if you're talking down to them. And even with your children, you shouldn't talk down to them just because you are an authority figure in their lives. I always believe that you respect children as much as you respect seniors. Everybody deserves respect, and you should speak to them with a respectful tone. You should speak to them like they're worthy of respect. The third one that kills communication and is destructive is defensiveness. And everyone is guilty of this, but mostly because of the way you're being communicated to. Most people get defensive because they feel like they're being attacked. So when you feel like you're being attacked, it's a normal human reaction to be like, like if someone swings at you, you're automatically going to defend. That's a normal human reaction. So sometimes we get mad at people like, oh, you're so defensive. But are you attacking them? And you may say, well, I'm just telling you the truth. But are you using the right tone when you're speaking the truth? How are you speaking this truth? So it's very important the other part is, what is defensive? Defensiveness is when people refuse to take responsibility for their own actions or their words, And you'll know those people who are defensive because they always make excuses, or they deflect blame and they'll say, oh yeah, but how about you? You did this and you did that, because they don't like to be able to, for their behaviors or their actions to be called, to the attention to be called to that. So they deflect. So people who are defensive will usually explain their behaviors away or refuse to acknowledge their own role in the conflict. When you're busy just being defensive, you can't communicate and you can't listen, because you're too busy protecting yourself. You're too busy protecting yourself. And that always, I think that's a big one, especially in intimate relationships, that people get defensive, whether it be boyfriend and girlfriend, husband and wife, parent with child. The moment you bring something up, people get defensive. And I think it's because the more intimately you know someone, you get very relaxed and feel like you don't owe them the same respect you would a stranger. So it's very important, if you get defensive, to look inside yourself and reflect and say, why am I getting defensive? What is it about anytime someone calls my behaviors and confronts me about my behavior that I get very defensive? The next one is something called stonewalling. My son does this one. So these are people who just withdraw emotionally or physically from the whole communication. And sometimes they do that to punish you, or to control the other person. That involves, stonewalling involves when you're communicating and the person refuses to speak to you, they ignore you, or they cut the communication altogether. They're like, we're done, don't want to talk about it. Or worse is when you bring up something they don't like to hear, they're like, okay, yeah, I'm always the bad one, yes, I'm always, yes, okay. And then that usually makes the other person very mad. But that's what stonewalling is. And usually it's because you're hearing something you don't like, you don't feel comfortable with. So that's what stonewalling is. Number 5 is emotional aggression. And so many people are guilty of this. Emotional aggression is yelling, intimidation, shouting, and trying to control the other person. Communication is not yelling. So the moment you start yelling, you're not communicating. You're not. And some people justify their yelling and say, well, I gotta scream so that they can hear me. They're not hearing you. They're not hearing you any different. They're not. Matter of fact, when you scream, they shut down and you're causing damage. So screaming is a way for you to release, but it's doing nothing for relationships. Shouting, intimidating, or trying to control a person, that's emotional aggression. You want to control the response. So you're communicating with someone, but you don't like what they're saying back, so you become aggressive. When you communicate, do you want to communicate to resolve issues, to free yourself of feelings, or do you want to control the outcome? Do you communicate with an agenda? Because if you communicate with an agenda, you're always going to walk away disappointed, and it does nothing to help relationships grow. It does nothing. The next one is disrespectful body language. And if you have kids, you know you'll get this one, because I raised 3 teenagers and I got a lot of that. So disrespectful body language is, yeah, I'm listening, but they're not looking at you. They're looking at their phone, they're looking at the wall, they're looking at their feet. When you make no eye contact, when you're rolling your eyes, when you're giving an angry, intimidating face, when you give dismissive hand gestures like, alrighty, hurry up, or you closed off completely, you put your hands like this, that is disrespectful body language. And you have to be aware when you use it, because sometimes the person is like, oh, I'm just talking to you. I don't understand why you're getting that way. But they felt disrespected and by your body language. You could say, I didn't say anything, but your body did. Your body was communicating something. And so it's very important to be aware of how, and it happens to me in therapy with clients. Sometimes when I have to tell them something that they don't like, I see it in their face immediately. And then when I call their attention, I'm like, you didn't like that, right? Because you shut down. And they're like, I did? No, I didn't shut down. I'm like, yes, you did. You did. Because they're not even aware. Most people, because there's not a mirror in front of them, they're not aware of what their body is doing. But it's important to have someone who can be honest with you and let you know. But a lot of people don't like that. They don't like being called out. They don't like, and if you don't like anyone ever being honest with you, you're never going to grow. You're never going to grow as a person. And again, you need to have safe people who'll be honest with you. Because there's a lot of people that are rude and mean and say, oh, I'm just being honest. And it don't feel, or they say, I say this because I love you, but it don't feel very loving. You know, how you say things matters a lot. My middle daughter, she's very harsh in her delivery. And sometimes I got to tell her, hey, you could have put a little Vaseline in that delivery. And she's like, wow, I'm just being honest. I said, yeah, but that sounded mean. I said, your delivery was not too nice, you know? You can smooth that out a little bit. And sometimes that's what people think. Well, I'm just being honest. But what is your goal in being honest? Do you want to be heard? Like, do you want to be respected? What's your goal in being honest? There should be a goal in your honesty, not just hurt people's feelings. And not everybody can tolerate. You know, you could be mean to one person, they're okay with it, but another person won't. There's 22 more of unhealthy communication patterns. Another one is intentionally lying. So that's deception, lying by omission or commission. I love that fact. Like, I'm just not going to tell them, but it's not really lying. Yeah, if you're withholding the truth, it's lying. Deceiving to manipulate or control. There's nothing worse with communicating with someone and you know they're lying to you. There's no worse feeling than that. If you're a liar, you're not going to get respect in communication. And sometimes everybody knows you're lying, but they let you keep thinking that you're okay. And the last one is gaslighting. And gaslighting is a pretty new term that everybody's using. But gaslighting is when you manipulate someone into doubting their own reality. I've been gaslit, and it's a really lousy feeling. When you know something and you know what you saw, this is an example. You know what you saw, and then you confront the person. They're like, no, I didn't do that. Or worse yet, when you tell somebody, hey, your behavior is abusive, or I feel like you're trying to control me, and they gaslight you by saying, no, I'm not trying to control you. I just love you so much. I just feel like I need to protect you, but you felt like it was controlling, that's gaslighting, when you make people question their own reality, when you know the truth. That's a form of people manipulating you. And sometimes you think you're only manipulated by strangers, but in my experience, those closest to you will try to manipulate you. So remember, unhealthy communication patterns can severely damage relationships. They lead to mistrust. They lead to a decrease in intimacy. You're never going to feel close to people if they have these unhealthy patterns. It increases conflict, and it breaks down relationships. You know how many couples, how many parents, in my own family, there's dysfunction and no one wants to talk about it. They'll talk behind your back, but no one wants to sit down like two adults and have a conversation, because people just don't communicate. They don't want to communicate, but they rather talk about you behind your back, but not sit down like two adults and communicate. These patterns, they eat away at trust. They create emotional distance. They leave individuals feeling unheard, unloved, and disrespected. And sometimes you stop talking to people and stop communicating because they're not listening. Listening is a big part. People say, oh, I communicate well, but do you listen well? Do you listen? And sometimes you don't listen well because you're so quick to want to respond. I used to have people like that in my life, that they were like, oh, I'm just going to forget. I need to say it. And I'm like, you're going to forget? Like, I'm not even finished. I'm not finished saying my sentence, because they're already thinking of their response. Then you're not really listening, because you're only thinking about your agenda and how you want to respond. And sometimes when you listen to the end, your response will be different, but you're so quick already. You have to listen to the end. I always tell this to people. Sometimes we don't let our kids communicate with us. And this is happening a lot in this world today. What I'm seeing, especially with teenagers, is crazy with their relationship with their parents and how they're acting out in this world. And a lot of times it's because they don't feel heard. They don't feel heard. You don't have to agree with someone to at least hear them out. In my own, I always say my kids have taught me more about parenting than I probably have taught them, because there were times where I really wasn't a good listener, and they would literally have to call me out and say, I need you to listen to me. I need you to listen. And sometimes I was so focused on the behavior that I didn't listen. And when they said, I need you to listen, and I'm like, oh my God, yes. And then I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, shift my heart. I want to be able to hear what my kid is trying to tell me. And I went through this with my youngest, especially. Like, she went through a stage of acting out, and I was crying and on my knees and asking the Lord, and I couldn't understand it. And I just kept focusing on her behavior and just kept giving consequence and doing this and doing that. And one day, I sat with her, and she's like, I just want you to listen to me. And I just saw something in her eyes different. And I remember weeping, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to hear you. I'm just going to hear you. And let me tell you, I sat with her for like 2 hours and just heard her. And it was hard because there was things that I felt defensive, like I wanted to protect myself, like I felt like she, and I couldn't. I just kept hearing God just tell me, listen, listen, listen. And it was the most healing thing that happened to our relationship because I was able to understand her. So different, but I was so focused on the behavior that I had lost sight of her. And when she really shared how she felt, and then she did something amazing, is that at the end, she told me what she needed. Like at that young age, she was 17, and she told me, Mom, this is what I need from you. This is what I need. Like, I need you to meet me halfway and not always say no to me. Like, I need you to hear me out when I want to go somewhere, even though you may not think it's a good idea, but at least hear me out, And because I felt like I was protecting her from these unsafe situations, I wasn't listening at that time. And I remember how our relationship changed drastically after that. After she felt heard, her whole behavior changed and she became a whole different person. And I share that because I don't mind being an open book. I'm a therapist, but I'm always learning. I learn stuff from my clients too. Like, I don't close my mind off. I want to learn. I want to be the best version of myself. And I always say, this is why so many relationships don't work. It's because we're not really listening. Like, we're not listening to each other. And sometimes when we know we have these unhealthy patterns in us, we can't take it to other people. We need to take it to God and say, God, this is, my heart is not good when I hear people talk to me. I don't know what it is, but I get angry or I get defensive or, like, I just want to criticize or I just feel like I want to attack them. Like, whatever it is, be able to just take it to God, because God will soften your heart, and allow you to listen, because that will make a difference in your relationship. I promise you, if you're struggling in a relationship, sometimes you just have to put all your stuff aside and go before God and say, God, I'm going to attempt this one more time to talk to my husband, my wife, my child, my mother, my brother, my friend. But I want to listen this time. I don't want to go with an agenda. I just want to listen, and that can make a big difference. That can make a big, big difference. But again, these patterns, if you don't change them, they eat away at trust. They eat away. They create emotional distance. They leave individuals feeling unheard, unloved, unwanted, and disrespected. And that's the things that chip away at relationships little by little by little by little. And I always say one person can make a difference. So I get people that say, well, my husband don't listen or my wife don't listen. It's always the spouse, the other person, or my daughter, or you changing can make a whole difference in your relationships. And the good news is that you can relearn healthy communication skills, and you can learn to break unhealthy patterns. That's the beauty of it. If you want to, you can learn it. I didn't grow up learning healthy communication. All these things I just read to you about unhealthy patterns, that was my house. I grew up with all those unhealthy patterns. But I wanted to learn healthy communication. I wanted to learn the power of my words and how to ask questions properly, how to respond properly. I had to learn those skills. And you can learn them too. I want to encourage people. I don't care how old you are. I had a man in therapy who's 70 years old, and he came to learn communication. He just wanted to learn communication skills because everyone in his life was telling him he wasn't good at it. And I was so excited with that client because he was 70 and realized that he wanted to learn. I don't care what age you are, you can still learn. Breaking unhealthy communication patterns require self-awareness. It starts with you and a willingness to change, a willingness to regulate your emotions, and a commitment to growth and healing. So when I say regulate your emotions, I always give people this rule. If you're upset at someone, give it 24 hours before you discuss it with them. Sleep on it. Learn to sit with the feeling of hurt. Learn to sit with the feeling of anger and disrespect for a little bit. Learn to regulate your feelings, to neutralize them, so that you don't react, but instead you respond, that you can go and talk to them in a calm way. Because when you sleep on something, you will feel different the next day. You will. And that immediate need to defend or anger or stuff, it will change if you learn to sit with the feeling. You know, if you learn to sit with the feeling. So I'm gonna tell you 5, okay guys? Just 5 small first steps to healthier communication. I'm gonna tell you the 5 first steps. 1 is identify your triggers. We all have triggers, all of us. And I love to share this story. When I first got married with my husband, I remember we were only married like maybe 4 months, and he was telling me a story, and I said in the story, oh my God, that's so stupid. I didn't say he was stupid. He was telling me a story about some coworkers, and I said, oh my God, that's so stupid. And his reaction, I never saw nothing like that. I was so young, I was married. He blew off the handle. Like, I got so scared. I was like, what is going on with this person? What did I say? What did I do? Like, his anger was crazy. And I remember I shut down. I went to bed, and the next day I spoke to him and I said, what was that? I was like, what was going on? And that's when he shared with me that the word stupid was a trigger for him. It was connected to a lot of trauma that he had. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, that word hurts him. That's a trigger. I didn't know at that time. I was 19. I didn't know what the word trigger meant. But I was smart enough to know that word hurts him. That it created that much of a reaction. So why would I want to use it? And I was that young when I learned that I would never use words against people. If people shared with me that certain things triggered them, why would I want to do that? That's something unhealthy in you, that you know someone's triggers and then you do it anyway. You know, we all have triggers, every single one of us. And you have to learn to identify your own triggers. Understand what situations, what people, what behaviors lead you to have unhealthy communication patterns. Healing triggers is your role. That is your role in communication. You can't get mad at everybody because they trigger you. You can't blow off the handle at everybody because they trigger you. Triggers are a reminder of things that still hurt in your life and that you need to heal. But it's your job to identify what those triggers are. No one else's. It's your job. Number 2 is develop active listening skills. Develop them, learn them. They're great books. I'm going to show you one book that I took off my shelf. And this one is called Why Don't We Listen Better? Why Don't We Listen Better? And it's by James Peterson. He has a doctorate in ministry. Why don't we listen better? I will post this on my page for you guys. But develop active listening skills. Be willing to learn. Be willing to learn. Pay attention to verbal and nonverbal cues from someone. If you see you're talking to someone, you see them getting angry, that's a nonverbal cue. That's your signal to change that whole conversation, you know, to pick a better time, because timing is everything as well when you communicate. Ask questions, ask clarifying questions. So say if someone hurts your feelings, right? I've had to do this, and I've had people do this with me. So someone hurt my feelings, and I just asked. I said, I did this to someone very close to me one day, because they used to say a lot of hurtful things to me. And I said, before I get upset and decide to cut them off, let me just ask them. And one day I just asked this person, I said, listen, they said something hurtful to me. And I said, did you mean to hurt me with those words? And that person looked shocked, like if I just slapped them. And they said, what? And I said, right now with what you said, did you mean to hurt me? Because that was very hurtful. And they just, like, they looked shocked, like, oh, I just slapped them. Because I held them accountable. They knew it was hurtful. They knew. But I wanted to give them the opportunity to clarify in case they didn't mean it that way. But you want to know something? That person did not clarify, but now they watch what they say in front of me. They knew what they were saying was hurtful. So they stopped just by me asking a clarifying question. I put it back on them. I held them accountable. Hey, did you mean to hurt me? And sometimes we need to ask those clarifying questions. The other part of active listening is summarize what someone says to you to make sure you understood. Because again, we listen through offense, we listen through our hurts. So sometimes someone is saying something to you, but it's not what you heard, you know? So the best way to clear up a misunderstanding or something turning into a fight or an argument is just clarifying and say, listen, this is what I heard you say. Is that what you said? Is that what you said? And they could be, because someone said that to me and I'm like, oh my God, no, that's not what I said. That's not what I meant at all. And it gives me a chance to clarify it, you know? But if the person hadn't asked me, they could have walked away mad, you know? So it's always good to just summarize it for the person. Listen, this is what I heard you say. Is that what you said? One of my favorites, this is one of my favorites, and I say everyone can use this. I use this all the time in my personal life. When I have trouble understanding what someone is communicating to me, and I just don't understand it, I don't want them to feel bad because they're not communicating it well. So I just simply ask them, can you help me to understand? Because sometimes someone has to break it down a little bit more, you know? Or I've done that with my kids a lot, and they appreciate that. They say, Ma, you're not understanding me. Okay, so help me to understand. Or even with your spouse, you know, help me to understand. Because sometimes someone has to break something down more, you know? And so you just saying that, it makes people feel like you really care when you say, help me to understand. So that's how you develop active listening skills. Number 3 is express feelings and needs constructively. Your feelings are your problem. Your needs are your problems. That means you are responsible for your feelings and your needs. And you are responsible for communicating that. Not someone else. No one can read your mind. No one can figure it out. One of the things that I hate when people say was they should just know. No, no one should just know. No, I don't care how long they've been with you. Everybody changes their mind. No one should know. It is your job to communicate. It is your job to express your feelings. It is your job to express your needs in a healthy way. You know? So, because today you may need this, tomorrow you don't. So it's important for you to express it. And remember that not all feelings are facts. Sometimes it's just a feeling that's going to pass by. But most people grew up in environments where this is why the cycle of dysfunction continues. This is why the cycle of abuse continues. Because most of us grew up in environments, if your mother was in a bad mood, everybody in the house had to suddenly pay for it. If your father was mad, all of a sudden everybody in the house paid for him being angry. These are people who didn't know how to regulate their emotions. So they took them out on their children. They took them out on people. And there's husbands that do that, wives that do that. They just take their feelings out on people. And you have to learn how to regulate your emotions first. You can't go around taking your feelings out on people and then expecting them to respect you. Like, just because you woke up tired or in a bad mood or anything, that's not everybody's fault. That's not everybody's fault, and everybody shouldn't have to pay for that. You should be able to communicate. You know, one of the things that I do with my husband is, if I'm not my best and he's on his way home, I always send him a text and say, I don't know what's going on with me today, but I am just not in a good place, or I'm just feeling really cranky today, or I let him know the heads up, because I want him to come home to an environment that he loves. And he's learned through the years to just respond with, what do you need? And most of the time, the way I regulate, I just need to be left alone. So I said, I just want to be left alone. He's like, you got it. You know, just let me know when you need something. And I like that. There's no arguing. There's no screaming. I'm not taking it out on anybody. I'm aware that I'm a little funky today. So guess what? I'm letting it be known, and I'm also letting it be known what I need, you know? Or if you need extra support, or if you need a hug, or if you need someone to, can you just wash the dishes for me? Like, that's what I need, It's your job. And people always say, well, they should just figure it out. Don't they see the dishes? Don't they see this? Don't they see that? Why can't they just be nice? It's your needs. That's your responsibility. That's your responsibility. The next one is practice empathy. You have to practice that. Not everyone has that all the time. Empathy means to put yourself in someone's shoes. Empathy means to be kind, to be gentle, Practice empathy. Try to understand the other person's perspective, even if you don't agree. Try. If you're in a relationship with someone, just try to understand. And last, and this is a big one, is to seek help and seek knowledge. Seek knowledge. If you can't afford therapy, start reading books, start watching podcasts, listen, YouTube is full of videos on healthy communication. Like, if it's important to you, you will do it. You will learn it. There's great resources. There's good podcasts on communication. There's so many things that you can do to learn. But seek the knowledge, seek the help. If you know you're a toxic communicator, if you know that you are unhealthy, that you just get angry and everybody pays for it, and you don't know how to communicate your needs and feelings, then maybe it's time that you get help. There's no shame in asking for help. There is no shame in asking for help, but you have to learn. You have to be willing to learn, because I always say you're not responsible for the things you don't know, but once you know, you have to do better. This is why I do these videos, because not everybody can afford therapy, or not everybody understands that they have a problem, or they don't realize they're unhealthy. This is the way they've done it. This is the way their family line has done it. Their mothers, their fathers, they don't even realize it. So I do these videos so that people can have a deeper understanding of themselves. I call this free therapy. I do a video every other Wednesday. I'm going to start doing some short clips, and with the Lord's help, I plan to launch my YouTube channel soon. So, my mission, besides helping people to heal, my mission is to stop the cycle of dysfunction, one person at a time, one family at a time, because for so many things that we think are normal are not normal. Just because it's in your home doesn't mean it's normal, or that it's healthy, or that it's not affecting your kids. And as parents, it is our job to teach our children how to communicate. It is our job to teach our children how to communicate. If you're a grandparent, teach your grandchildren how to communicate. Look them in the eyes. Don't look down on them. Don't be mean. Just get down to their level. Look them in the eyes and say, okay, this is how you say it. This is how you ask for help. This is how you get my attention. You can start changing the whole dynamics of your family. You can start changing the cycle of dysfunction one change at a time. But learn the difference between facts, between fantasy, between fiction, between feelings. Learn the difference, because just because something enters your mind doesn't mean that it's the truth. Just because you think it doesn't make it a fact. Just because you feel it doesn't make it a fact. So I pray that you enjoyed this video. I love talking about communication. My passion is family. I plan to do a family video on my next, because I do every other Wednesday. That's going to be that one. But I'm going to do a video soon on church hurt and spiritual dysfunction. And I'll announce that one. And I really would love for everyone to watch, because we're in a season where people need healing so bad. The world is in danger. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching and supporting me as always. And enjoy the rest of your week, and be intentional in your life. Live it fully loved. God bless you guys.